What is a housing crisis and are we in one? Hi, I'm Chris Gorman with Gorman Residential, and today I'm going to break down for you the ins and outs of the housing crisis that I keep hearing more and more about on social media and on the news. So, first of all, let me define what a housing crisis is. A housing crisis is either an oversupply or an under demand of homes. Okay? So, in other words, you've got lots of homes for sale and no buyers for them, in which cases prices drop, or you've got lots of buyers and no homes for sale, in which case prices go up. What we have here is a stuck market. What I mean by that is we are in an undersupplied market. There's not enough homes for sale. However, there's also not as many buyers in the market for those homes. So prices are remaining on an upward trajectory, even though more and more supply is coming to the market every day. You've got certain areas of the country where more homes are coming on at a faster rate. Areas of Texas, areas of Florida, this is true. And you're starting to see prices come down a little bit. But generally speaking, what we have is not a housing crisis. What we have is a affordability crisis. Because for the majority of middle to upper class working people, while it is inconvenient to get a new mortgage with a higher interest rate, it's still feasible. But the housing section that we don't have enough supply of really is that affordable housing. And the main reason is because for a decade or more, builders haven't been building that type of home. Why haven't they been building that type of home? Well, the answer to that question is complex. There's not a straightforward answer. It's a financial piece, it's a local government piece, but I can give you one example. Now, this is a local example. If you're familiar with the Raleigh area, you know that Wake Forest is a rapidly growing town outside of Raleigh. And when you get up to the northern boundary of Wake Forest, you come into Franklin County. Now, Wake Forest is in Wake County, and then Franklin County is its own separate government, right? Franklin County gets most of its water from a city that's north of Franklin County called Henderson. They control the water supply to the entire county of Franklin. It is really difficult for developers to go buy cheap land in Franklin County and get water permits to develop affordable housing. The reason that is because the local government in Henderson doesn't want to give them that water because they want the growth. But they don't seem to realize that the growth isn't going to skip over Franklin and just jump to Henderson just because there's water there. It has to grow out organically. That's how urban sprawl happens. You've got really just a conflict of egos going on in Henderson and Franklin, where until something gives, you're going to have all this pent up demand and activity that's just waiting to happen. And now if Henderson pulled the trigger and said, okay, let's do this, there would be explosive growth in affordable housing north in Franklin County. That's just one example of how the local government can be involved in the undersupply of affordable housing on a local level. There's countless other examples, okay? In general, I do not believe that the federal government should step in a situation like that and force somebody's hand, because that's not the way that our system works. However, it's no question that as a people in general, we have stepped back from the democratic process, because the way that those situations get solved is by the residents showing up to the meetings, showing up, speaking on the floor, and voicing their opinion and putting pressure on their elected officials to make good decisions. Because once Franklin County is allowed to grow, Henderson will ultimately grow as well. It just has to grow through Franklin. Another example, let's say you live in a nice neighborhood, and just on the front edge of that neighborhood, there's a 5-acre tract of land that a developer wants to build apartments on, okay? The process of that would be the developer would have to go through the planning board at the local level and get a permit in order to do that. And there would be a hearing and a notice sent out to the residents. Hey, if you have a problem with this, come and voice your opinion on this date at this location. Most of the time, people are either unengaged, unaware that that is even taking place, or they just couldn't be bothered to show up. But then they're happy to complain about it after the fact. The question is, if all of those people were given an opportunity to, let's say, write a check, you know what, if you write a $5,000 check, we're not going to build this thing in your backyard. Would you do it? Because that's essentially what has to be done in order to solve this crisis. We either have to develop affordable housing or we have to subsidize it, or a combination of both. And what has happened historically for the last decade is not enough development, a lot of growth, not to mention a lot of immigration that is compounding the affordability problem. And you end up in a situation where people can't afford to move and they can't afford to stay. And, wage growth has not kept up. Inflation and the cost of living has compounded the problem. So the real solution is at a macro level scale. Okay. If the federal government would just stop printing money for a while and get inflation really back under control, bring down the cost of living, that is a big pressure reliever right there. As long as that continues to happen, this problem is only going to get worse. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, I lost my train of thought. Number two is that local cities, towns, and counties have to work together on this problem. We can't be pitted against each other. We cannot view each other as adversaries. It is going to take a collaboration between various jurisdictions to solve this problem, just like the example I used with Henderson and Franklin County. Okay, it takes both of them to solve that particular issue. And that is just a microcosm of a much bigger problem that happens all over the country. There has to be water, there has to be utilities in order for developers to come in where there's affordable land and develop affordable housing. You're not going to develop affordable housing where there's not affordable land. Okay. And number three is this. I would encourage everybody to get involved and engaged in their local government. Pay attention to who you're electing and what their platforms are. Pay attention to the planning meetings that take place and just engage. Just engage. There was a time way before I was here that people were very active in their local governments, and I feel like we're just not anymore. And we're all happy to complain about all the problems, but then when it comes time to actually do something about it or voice an opinion or participate in some level, we kind of just take a step back and we say, yeah, well, that's really not my problem. I'm just going to go about my business. But in a democratic system, in a governance by the people have to be involved in the governance. Or if left to their own devices, politicians will do what politicians do. And politics is a nasty game. So those are the three things I think that need to happen in order to really solve this problem. It's a very complex issue. And for the foreseeable future, what we're likely to continue to have is a housing crisis specifically related to affordable homes, and not so much a crisis of, I'll call it middle to upper price bracket homes. Because while that's an inconvenience to people that are making good money can still afford to make those changes, and they are every day. We see people jumping from 3% to 6.5% mortgages all the time. And it's a bit of a head scratcher if you're living paycheck. Why would somebody do that? Well, if somebody's got the means to do that, and by doing so solving a problem, then they'll do it. That's just, they'll make that sacrifice. Maybe they cut back in a different area. But those homes continue to sell. And as long as those homes continue to sell, even with the high interest rates, even with the high prices are not going to drop. Anybody that says otherwise is out of their mind and probably just trying to market something. I'm not going to say trying to market fear to get likes and clicks and engagement on social media. But there's no mechanism by which the real estate market will crash. It's just not that anybody that is paying attention can identify anyways. So those are my 2 cents on the housing crisis. I'd love to hear your comments. You can do that below, and I will see you next time.